Just bounce to this.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? My name is Brandon Clements, and welcome back to another tutorial from GlassHand. Today I had a great question from one of you guys talking about studio lighting setups inside of Cinema 4D and Octane, and really everything that we're going to be talking about today can work in any software with any renderer, but it's going to focus on the principles of good studio lighting and why some techniques work and why some don't. And I have a couple examples here to break it down so that we can understand the basics of good studio lighting so that we could expand upon that and create more devices for storytelling and lighting. So that's really what it's all about, is storytelling. But I have some great examples. Let's go ahead and jump into them and see what we got going on today. So without further ado, here we go. So this is our first scene, and you can see that I'm using the lightsaber from one of our past tutorials. Basically, it's put into this light box, right? So light boxes are used a lot in photography to basically create this nice global soft light that we're probably all familiar with from like GI. So it works well in the real world, and it also works really great here inside of Octane, and you get some really good feedback really quickly. So if there's any kind of product renderings that you guys are doing, this is going to be good, especially for small ones. But also this can grow and expand into like automotive renderings, right? So both of these examples kind of derive from just principles of photography. So we should go ahead and talk about why. Let's see, this is going to be our top light. So let me rename that so it doesn't say right. Top light, and then a top light group. So spin light top. Okay. And what I've done is just categorize these into just certain nulls, so that, let me go ahead and just hide the effect here in the viewport. I went ahead and put them in different nulls so that I could use the pivot points here to spin them around and face them in different ways. So if I showed this one, then I can, just use these nulls to spin around. It's pretty good to just have this simple little rig to go and move your lights around the scene. So let's go ahead and see what this looks like in the live viewer. I'll go ahead and make it nice and large. I'll try to keep this live viewer big for most of the time that we talk about these lighting setups. Also, if you guys have noticed, I'm on a new machine. I have 4 980 Ti's. They're all water cooled, and it's running really awesome here in Octane. So this is a brand new setup. So let's go ahead. I'll take the info off, and let's just kind of talk about why this works so well and why it doesn't. So let's break it down from the top light, and just go ahead and we'll send this right back to Octane just to make sure that this is working. Okay, cool. So this top light, if we look at the temperature, it's about 6500 white, and it's just a power of 1. The actual size of the light is about, let's say 40 to 50 centimeters, somewhere around in that area. Basically, this is going to provide a softer kind of overall light because of the size. So if you could think about this in the real world kind of standard, this would be like a bulb inside a diffused light. Inside of a actual softbox. I couldn't think of the word there. So that we get this really nice highlight across the top, and it's directly above. So this kind of accentuates the actual overall shape of the object, and then we get a reflection from the white floor. So we kind of get tones going from really bright white highlights all the way into these kind of chrome tones here from the black reflection of the environment, which you need to make sure under your Octane settings, if you don't have an actual environment in the scene, that your environment color is set to black. And I just turned this all the way down just so I know that there's nothing in the scene. So again, it looks really great already with the light box and just one light. But we can accentuate some more features of this product and start to bring it out from the background as we add lights from the right and left. Okay, and overall that will just give us a brighter container inside of our box. So this material, again, it's just glossy with it's not actually 100% white. It's about 80% white in the diffuse, and the index is set to 1.4. So we're throwing around a lot of light here in this scene, but our left and right lights, if we select both of these, Again, they're kind of white, 6500, and again set to 1, and they're about the same size, I believe, as the top light. Yes, they're the exact same size. Now, if these were smaller lights, we would get harsh shadows, and we wouldn't get this overall soft dreamlike effect. And we can adjust the actual power of these lights how we want. So they're all set to 1. If we bring this up to 2, we can kind of create more of a super white kind of light box effect. But the reason why you see this so much around the internet and why this works so well is, again, that top light just accentuates the actual features of the product, and then the right and left are actually bringing out some more highlights and a little bit more features and kind of popping it out from the background, from a white background here. So again, we could just throw a black background on it and we get a completely different look and feel. And now we are seeing something that's a little bit more mysterious. Maybe something that's a little more sexy, whether it's going to be like a certain product that like perfume or cologne, you see a lot of these kind of endless like black cyc backdrops. Okay, so this is a standard light box setup. So this is something to keep in mind. Let's go ahead and look at the other scene. I have a wine glass here, and this is a white backdrop, again, with a, let's go ahead and check out where the light is located. Now this light right now, this big disc, is basically just trying to create a highlight here on the wine glass and on the wine inside of the glass. So this actually has no environment, it's just one simple light. And what we're trying to do here is just trying to, let's go ahead and send that to Octane, create this black rim from the glass, from just this natural phenomenon that happens. And again, we have a reflective floor but a diffuse backdrop. Okay, now how I've done this is I just have this like little test shader here, and you can see in the diffuse it just has a gradient, and I would throw this onto my objects and make sure that the parts of the studio that I wanted to be completely 100% black, like the bottom of the floor was completely black and the backdrop was white. So I don't know if this will work here for the cyc. Yeah, you can see that I was testing this on a different object, but I would get the black of the floor to be, I would get the floor 100% black just by switching this. Let's see if we can update it. There we go, in the viewport. And I would slide this down so that, there we go. Now it's keeping up with me. Okay. I would slide this down so that I would get 100% black floor, and that I would get this backdrop to be white. And this was just a trick so that I could throw this into the roughness channel of the cyc background so that I could keep the floor very reflective but keep the backdrop very diffuse. Okay, and I did a couple of these little tricks just to overall get this looking exactly how I wanted it. Let's go ahead and throw this actual cyc white onto our cyc. And again, you can see it's reflective on the floor and then diffuse on the background. I also went ahead and tweaked the glass shader to look exactly how I wanted it to be. So let's talk about glass objects for a second, just the principles of how they actually need to be modeled. First of all, there needs to be some thickness to the glass, and the normals on the inside should be pointing inward, and the normals on the outside should be pointing outward. Okay, so this is very important to get a very physically accurate result with your wine or with the glass. And then I copied these polygons on the inside, and I created a wine, and then just actually covered this hole. So that's how I created the wine inside of it. But if we look at the wine glass, I have a little bit of roughness that I've kind of clamped down from this texture and then brought the brightness down just so I could get a little bit of variation on the surface. I think that helps a lot. And then in the reflection, I've got this gradient so that where the actual wine or the alcohol or the beverage or the product would actually be showing, there isn't a reflection from the glass. The reflection is actually coming from the wine inside of the object. So you get a little bit of that floor showing up in the wine, but it wasn't looking like something you would see in photographed version of like alcohol. Usually they have absolutely no reflection over top of the wine, just so you can see the wine and it just looks appetizing. But you can just basically work with your reflections to try to get that to show up. Now, this isn't physically accurate at all, but you know, sometimes you just need to make things look exactly how you want as an artist. But I also got the black rim from using a in the transmission. I was using an inverted fall off map, and I tweaked some of the settings to crunch it down with the contrast to get this kind of black rim to show up. So instead of using like a black card or like any kind of special light, I went ahead and just put this into the shader just so I could pop that off of the background from that white background. Okay, so just some tips there. You know, any of this should work for any kind of package or any kind of material or renderer, whatever. It's just basically the principles of trying to get white on white to look really appealing. But you can see here, just the light is very bright and it's just here for the reflection. So, and one more thing, I completely was racking my brains. Somehow I had this smooth unticked, and if you untick that, and then if we jump up really close, you can see that the glass looks extremely faceted. For the life of me, I could not figure that out until I was messing around with the shader. Kind of process of elimination led me to believe that it wasn't Cinema 4D, and I had enough subdivision, so it was something that was going to be in the shader. And if we resend that, now you can see that it's very smooth. So kind of a gotcha moment that I had that I wanted to pass along to you guys. And again, in the cameras, I like to use like the post-processing. If we open the live viewer again, I like to use the post-processing just to kind of add a little bit more bloom to the lens overall, just so it looks like that it's really super white, super hot white. Maybe not that much, but you guys kind of get the idea. It looks like the lens is filled with a lot of white light coming from the reflected objects here. So I use that a lot in most of my renders. So let's go ahead and look at the reverse kind of situation. This is where we would have a black backdrop, and we want to be able to have the white edges highlight and accentuate this glass. Same idea. Backdrop is very diffuse with a reflective floor. Let me just take the info off. So to get the reflections on the wine glass, we just basically moved these rim lights, which are discs that you change here in the details to disc, the shape. We moved those back kind of out of the camera view. You can see they're not in the camera view, but they go ahead and accentuate and bring out that glass from the backdrop. And I have a cyc light just, let's see, pointed back at this new light target. So this would be like the cyc target, so we don't get confused from the light target and the cyc. But that's just to add some more definition to the background so that we don't keep the same tonal values throughout the image. They're always constantly changing. Okay, and you can see where the light hits the wine. It's a really deep red wine. I'll talk about the shader for a moment here. You can see there's like no roughness, reflective. You know, all this is pretty basic until you get down to the index. I believe this is the index for alcohol, for most alcohol. And then the transmission, I just kind of use this pinkish, purplish, reddish color. And then the medium is set to an absorption medium, so that we can basically get the inversion of, let's see, we have this fall off map multiplied over this inverted red color. So again, with the absorption, you have to remember that you're talking about everything except the color that you want. So the easiest way to do that is just to use an invert and say, I want it to be this color. So we had talked about that in some other tutorials. That invert allows you to select the color that you want it overall to be. And then we're just multiplying this inverted fall off map so that the edges appear red and that the facing angle is very deep and rich with this scale from the absorption. Okay, so I hope that makes sense to you guys. You can download the scene and check it out for yourself, but I like to stack them with layers a lot. I don't usually use the node editor so much. I don't use the node editor a lot just because I've gotten so used to the layer system in Cinema 4D just from using Cinema a lot. But like in Maya, I loved in the Hypershade how I could actually put all this together. So this is basically what we're looking at, right? You have a fall off that is being inverted. So the black and white of the fall off is inverted into a multiply, which is telling the system that the red needs to show up on the outsides of the absorption medium. Okay, so it's a lot easier to see here in the node editor, way easier than in the layers system. So that's the red wine. So I hope those examples helped you guys with thinking about studio lighting with glass objects and smaller products and large products. But now let's talk about some basics of three-point lighting. And three-point lighting in general, I think it's really important. It kind of gets a bad rap with some artists because they feel that it's just, super simple, right? Like you have basic key light that's coming from 45 right, and then you have a fill from 45 left, and then you also have a rim light from the back. But the reason why this works so well is important, and if you don't understand the basics of three-point lighting, then it's harder to kind of construct a better idea of lighting for storytelling. So let's go ahead and open the live viewer and take a look at our friend Neptune here. So I'll toggle the info on and off. And straight away, we're just seeing this in a black room. So it's just, I think it's just like 2% black. It's very dark. Roughness is 0.4. Index is 1.4 for the room. And as we take a look at this setup, let's go ahead and just solo the key light. Now we have our key right now just nice and bright, anywhere from like 400 to 600. If I kind of pump this up to 600, we'll kind of get an overall brighter kind of key light. Now, the thing about the key light on this subject is that it's kind of at a 45-degree angle, and you also get this nice triangle that kind of appears on your subject from that 45-degree line with the nose facing forward, which you see a lot in film and photography. This is very common light placement and setup, but the reason why it works so well is that it reads the form coming all the way from screen right to left, and you get this nice gradation of tone. Now, something that you'll notice is that this light is smaller. It's actually just the standard 20 by 20 centimeters when you create it in the scene, so we get a nice harsher shadow here on our subject. But as we go ahead and increase this light, so let's go ahead up to 200, you can see that when we get it larger, the intensity becomes way more apparent. But you can see that this is a completely different story that's being told than having a small crisp light, because the shadows are a lot softer. It's a lot more flattering for this example. But let's go ahead and just keep it very simple, 20 and 20. And let's go back to 600. And you can see that it's 4,500 in the Kelvin range, so it's very warm. So let's go ahead and turn on our fill light. What our fill light is doing is just adding a little bit more bounced light into these very dark shadowed areas, okay? And it's 6,500 on the Kelvin range, so it's got this nice blue tint to it. And then as we turn on the rim light, we accentuate and bring out this character from the background with this nice hot white light that's coming from behind. So we get 6,500 white and then 3,000 here to keep it very bright, but it accentuates its form very well. So let's go ahead and back out. So what I was talking about, understanding three-point lighting, as I go ahead and turn this off and we just leave the rim light, you can see that being backlit from the subject, it creates a different story than having a full frontal kind of 45-degree key light here from this angle. This kind of reads as a hero shot and something that's been in theater and stage for, it's as old as as time, right? So especially even with just the fill light, now this tells a different story as well. And as you increase the size of the fill light, let's bring down the intensity. You can see that this tells a different story, kind of more of an indirect bounce and up onto our subject. But a 3-point lighting actually has the good fundamentals and principles, and it can actually be a plausible solution to actually lighting subjects. So let's go ahead and move on to the next example, to 90-degree lighting. Now this is kind of similar to the softbox, the Lightbox solution that we saw, but for a subject. Now the lights that I have, let's go ahead and walk through them one by one. So the actual key light coming from the 90-degree left is about 6,500 degrees, so it's nice and blue. And I got it pretty strong at 400, and it is also the same size as just a standard light when it's created, which creates this really harsh shadow on the subject. But you can see as we add a fill to the left side with a smaller power or smaller intensity, then we kind of get this core shadow that appears here in the subject. But you can see from 90 degrees left and right, we get this nice kind of key direction and a little bit of fill to kind of read the subject a little bit better. And then if we add a light to the background, then we can pull that subject away from the background and create a different type of overall lighting setups. Again, it's a simple solution, but you're getting the most out of your lights to make your subject appear and read the best that it can. Okay, so let's look at another kind of lighting setup. This is known as like the high key kind of lighting setup. So let me just go ahead and close this window. I'll switch back to the Gerard shading, and I'll hide my cameras a little bit there so we can see exactly what's going on in this scene. So this is very simple. This is just using one light from a high key right above the subject, and it's very bright, and then we actually just have a studio backdrop light. So if we take a look at this lighting setup, then you can see overall it tells a different story on our subject. Lighting a subject from the top right creates this really interesting dynamic. And it's nice and bright, you can see, and it's kind of filling this lens again with the post-processing going on. But you know, you can read this form very clearly in the eyebrows, kind of reading underneath the eyes. So just using one light, you can create mood and tone just from placement and overall intensity. And then again, adding the backdrop light just to kind of create this overall gradation of tone so that the backdrop is just not 100% black. There's actually some tone falling off around the subject. Okay, so that was just a quick tutorial and overview about very simple studio lighting and how to get the most out of your lights. So as you progress and you have this solid foundation and understanding, you're basically trying to paint with light, from the placement to the intensity to the color of the light. I tried to keep this as simple as possible, didn't use any HDR textures, just use standard area lights and just very simple Kelvin degree range just to overall bring out the subject, whatever it was, from a product to an actual subject. But it's very important that you have a very clear understanding of why light placement and light intensity works to create different moods and tone overall. Just using 1 to 3 lights, we can create some really interesting mood. So if you have any questions, just leave them in the comment section below. Give this video a thumbs up and share. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for all the emails and the feedback on social media and just in my inbox in general. It's been awesome getting to know a lot of you guys. I hope that I've been able to answer your questions the best that I can. So keep them coming, and I'll keep doing tutorials. We got a lot of work coming here in the next week, but I'm going to try to get as much as I can done this week to share as much information as possible. So thanks a lot, guys. I really appreciate it, and we'll see you guys in the next tutorial. Thanks a lot. Take care.